南无本师释迦牟尼佛。南无本师释迦牟尼佛。南无本师释迦牟尼佛。So today I will start where we, so to say, ended yesterday evening. Yesterday evening we ended by explaining actually the two thoughts in our text of observation of the breath. Either the mind is excited while observing the breath, or the mind is thinking. These are the two thoughts which make the meditation object not clear. And we have to understand and always contemplate, always think about it continuously. There is no real meditation without a clear meditation object. If we don't have a clear meditation object, be it a worldly object like the breath, or be it the ultimate reality like emptiness, which we cannot grasp. Usually we first learn the balance of the mind. What is the balance of the mind? Balance of the mind is called samadhi. In Sanskrit, for those of you who are studying Pali, adhana means putting the mind on the object equally, without the thinking, without excitement. This is samadhi. And when we have this state of samadhi, we can investigate the reality as it really is. Normally, we are always, in one way or another, influenced by our own judgments. So we cannot penetrate the reality, because our sensations, our perceptions, our mind is, so to say, cheating us. It reveals to us a reality which only exists for us, but is not really any objective reality. In order to study the objective reality, we need samadhi. And samadhi means we putting the mind equally on the object, so that it does not think and it does not have the tendency to run away. Now, this tendency of running away, we have actually to learn meditation, we have to remove the 5 so-called obstacles. We have already mentioned that. What is called in Pali panchaguna, the desire for the objects of the senses. This desire is very strong, manifested in meditation. And it takes time before we stabilize the mind and actually completely transcend this desire. Because it's our habit. The 5 senses want to grasp the object. Because the 5 senses want to grasp the object, the mind is excited. It is also a state of excitement. Sensual desire is a state of excitement. Resistance in Sanskrit language. Sanskrit is a very wonderful language. What means resistance? Pratihan, to strike against. The mind wants to strike against the object. That is also excitement. Why do we want to strike against the object? Because we have no peace. Our mind is not in balance. Because the mind is not in balance, it searches for some object to grasp. Or it resists. This tendency is also excitement. In Sanskrit, this is called audatyam, going up. The mind goes up. The mind goes either up or it goes down. So no balance. Because no balance, instead of observing reality as it really is, we observe, so to say, through our defilements. And most of us do not meditate. We are in defilements, but we are even not conscious of the defilements. It is when we really meditate and we have a strong motivation for meditation, then we become sensitive to defilements. Mostly we are in defilements, but not even conscious we are in defilements. So strong is this tendency for grasping the object or resisting the object. And most of the time we are involved in this, and it is excitement. It prevents us from penetrating the reality as it really is. So, if the mind is not excited, untrained mind, what will happen? It will sink. Because if it's not grasping or resisting, it will have boredom. You may have experience in meditation also. If there is nothing to grasp, the boredom. If there is boredom, object not clear, the mind will sink. The sloth and torpor. Then another obstacle is actually the excitement itself, which is usually connected with remorse. We think of what we have done and should not have done, and we indulge in all kinds of thinking based on excitement. And we think, I should not have done that, I should have done that, and it is also excitement. It is also the state of non-balance. And finally, doubt. Doubt is also a state of excitement. Actually, in Buddhism, we distinguish two kinds of doubt. There is a positive doubt. When you practice Zen, actually, the main practice is this kind of positive doubt. But what is meant here by doubt is a doubt based on excitement. Maybe I should do something else than meditating. I have so many obstacles. And what is this all about, this philosophy of selflessness? I am John Smith. That's it. So, without the Buddha, without the Sangha, without the Dharma, without the meditation, without the dependent origination being the real state of things in the world. Because this idea of ourselves really existing is so strong in us. And when we meditate, we are challenging this idea, when we meditate correctly. And all these can be boiled down to two tendencies of the mind, either of thinking or of excitement, which means rising actually. The mind is rising because it's excited. And when it is rising, it wants to grasp something, it resists something, it is doubting, and it has remorse, worries, anxiety. All this is also excitement. Fears is also excitement. And because we have excitement, we are, so to say, removed from objective observation. And because we are thinking, we are also, mind is thinking, we are also removed from objective observation. And in order to understand what we are, what is our real content of our experience, we have to have a balanced mind. If the mind is not balanced, we may have all kinds of wonderful experiences, but they will not lead to the realization. The condition for realization is the balanced mind. It's in all yoga traditions. And now this first work to be done in meditation is to bring the mind to the state of the balance. And this discipline is called shamatha, appeasement. And we have already noted in this tradition, in the Northern Buddhism, actually there is no harm of bringing vipassana into the training in shamatha also. We can do it on the base of this theory or practice of understanding all objects as mental objects, especially starting with meditation objects. So all objects are actually the images in the mind, and they are either differentiated or non-differentiated. We use the differentiated to counter the tendency of mind to thinking, and we use a non-differentiated to counter the tendency of mind to excitement. Why? Because the source of excitement is grasping. The Buddha explains the cause of suffering by grasping. And that which is grasped doesn't really exist. It is our own concepts. Because the reality, very important, especially emphasized in the Northern tradition, the reality cannot be grasped. What we grasp are our own concepts of the reality. So the Sandi Nirmochana Sutra, Jieshen Mijing, very important for this tradition of Yogacara, which is the base for our understanding of Shamatha and Vipassana in the northern tradition. It says, how does the Bodhisattva practice Shamatha and Vipassana? By understanding that in reality nothing is really established. That which is established is illusionary established. And giving rise to the vow to attain the supreme enlightenment. This is a practice of Shamatha and Vipassana of the Bodhisattva. Very important to understand. So, if we want to practice the path of the Bodhisattva, we contemplate this true nature of reality being impossible to grasp. So we chant the Heart Sutra, Wu Sota, nothing to be attained. In reality, nothing is to be attained. And in order to understand it, in order to experience it, we have to bring the mind into balance. Otherwise, it's just a concept like any other concept. And bringing the mind to balance means the removing from the mind this tendency of thinking and of excitement. Then we get this clarity. And this clarity, if we really have deeper experience of it, will not leave us. This is what we want to achieve by training in shamatha. When we train in shamatha and vipassana, it takes a long time. But when we have some real experience, then we will see these big fluctuations of the mind like something unreal. We will not identify with them. This is a great achievement in meditation. Normally, we always identify with these states of excitement, with these states of thinking, because we don't have the deep experience of this balance of the mind. And this balance of the mind is a peace of the mind. By concentration, according to Buddhism, we can only get this peace of the mind temporarily. When we are in a state of deep concentration, temporarily the mind becomes pure. But when we get out of the state of concentration, again these states of grasping will come again and again, because it's the nature of the beings. We are not a Buddha because we grasp. So we are beings. What is the Chinese character for the Buddha? The being, the Ren, no. No being, no grasping. How do we know what the being is like? Because we understand what he is grasping for. So he likes this, he likes that, he does not like this, he does not like that. This is how we know the beings, their character. But we cannot know the Buddha because he is not grasping. So he has no abode. Because he is not no abode, he is staying always in the state of samadhi. This is same for the disciple Buddha, for the Buddha for himself, for the Buddha with the supreme realization. So the first job and most base for all meditation is to bring the mind into the balance by removing consciously. By consciously means by awareness. Very important to understand. The more aware we are, the more conscious we are. And because we are aware, we are conscious, we are vigilant, therefore we protect our mind from all states of excitement and thinking. So we stay in the purity of the mind. This is vigilance. And without vigilance, no awareness. So the first thing to learn in meditation is how to bring the mind into the balance. Then with this balanced mind, we investigate the reality. Be it the reality of the phenomena, or be it the ultimate reality, which is one, emptiness, suchness. The suchness, emptiness, actually means fullness. Very important to understand. There is a saying, now we are learning in the meditation on the breath, there is a wonderful saying in the Visuddhimagga which says, Anapanasati, this is what we are practicing, the mindfulness of the breath. Yasa paripuna, to one who has completed the training in the mindfulness of the breath. Anapanasati, yasa paripuna, subhavita, one who has well developed the mindfulness of the breath. Yatha buddhena desita, as it is taught by the Buddha, so he imam lokam, this world, obhasati, means illumines, abhamuto va chandima, like the moon released from the clouds. Are you shining like the moon released from the clouds? So this is what you want to achieve by meditating on the breath. So this is why in Chinese tradition, meditation on the breath is called the 6 wonderful methods, which make you shine like the moon released from the clouds. Why? Because the pure mind is shining. We are not shining because our mind gets defiled. And the cause of defilement is grasping. According to actually Buddhist psychology, both excitement and the sinking of the mind is due to grasping. This is very difficult to understand. Just like anger, fear, excitement, depression, worries, same like clinging, all is due to grasping. Hate, attachment, both due to grasping. Finally, all samsara due to grasping. When we see it, it is a very, very stable base for meditation. We first have to see the thoughts. That's why our text also explain the thoughts, in order to remove them. If we don't see the thoughts, how can we remove the thoughts? So, for those who are beginners to meditation, what you will see in the beginning is just thoughts and thoughts and thoughts. So it's very easy to become depressed, become full of worries. But actually, it does not mean that it is bad. There is a bad worry and a good worry. We are learning by facing the obstacles, and these obstacles are there. They have been there always. Now we are meditating, so they will come out. We have requested them to come out. When we meditate correctly, of course they will come out, because they are there. And they are hidden. Now we meditate, we challenge them. When we challenge the Mara will come. If we don't challenge the Mara, he's sleeping, he does not care about us. So the obstacles is not necessarily a bad thing. But we always tend to think that these obstacles are very bad. Why? Because we want to grasp something, we want to grasp happiness. But the happiness you grasp is not real happiness. So now we know what is to be cultivated is balance of mind. And this cultivation of the balance of mind, the cultivation of shamatha, is explained in the northern tradition, especially based on this Yogacara Bhumi Shastra from which our text comes, is explained by 9 stages, 9 dwellings of the mind in shamatha. They are called in Chinese Ju, Xin, Ju. You may have heard about them. And they are very important to understand, because they explain to us very clearly that the learning meditation is a process. Because we don't understand it is a process, we want to grasp, and grasping is separation. And we think, aha, now I am counting because I want to get this nimitta. You grasp for nimitta, it will never come. Because the nimitta will come when the grasping goes to background. So now I am counting the breath, now I am investigating long and short breath, you grasping, the nimitta will not come. That's why this tradition, Tiantai Same, explained these in counting of the breaths, everything can be experienced. Everything can be experienced when you're not grasping. So we learn each and every stage by learning non-grasping. When we have learned non-grasping, the mind will attain the balance. So we have to bring wisdom into our meditation. And the wisdom in Buddhism is the wisdom of non-grasping. There is a very famous saying in the Agamas, Sabbe Dhamma na alam abhinivesaya. There is not a single thing which is worth of grasping. Nothing is worth of grasping. This is very difficult to understand. But this is the essence of all that the Buddha has taught. Nothing is worth of grasping. All our problems are due to grasping. Our fears, our worries, our stress. Of course, when we live active life, we need some stress. It is necessary. But when we know this philosophy of non-grasping, it is of great help. So we will not grasp for the grasped, grasp for the stress. We will see it as something, so to say, foreign to us. Then we can find the peace even in stress. But we have to practice, we have to have experience. By practicing, we naturally get detachment. Without practicing, we won't get naturally detachment. Impossible. When we have detachment from all these defilements, they cease to be burning. But they are very, very burning when we don't have detachment. And the defilements in the Buddhist tradition, they are called, actually their name is also burning, parilaha, fever. This grasping is a fever. So the Abhidharma explained what is the taste of grasping. The taste of grasping is like the piece of raw flesh on the hot iron. When you develop this sensitivity, you will keep the mind naturally in balance. Even so, the defilements come, you will learn from them. And this is the path of Bodhisattva. The path of Bodhisattva is not completely abandoning all defilements, but see defilements as something like a dream, not real. Then we can learn to face all kinds of situations and face with balance and help others to get the balance. This is what we want to learn through meditation if we want to be active in the world and do some good things for us and for others. That's why this learning meditation is so important. We want to do good things, but we will never be able to do them really unless we have learned this skill of keeping the mind in balance. We want to be social workers, do good things. We want to be medical practitioners, do good things. We want to be good monks, good nuns. But we will never really near that aim unless we have learned the skill of keeping the mind in balance. And that is shamatha. So, how to start? We are now continuing what we have learned. We start by putting the mind on the meditation object. That is the first stage of shamatha. In the Chinese, the Xuanzang translated as Neiju. Ne means inside, Ju means dwelling. Let the mind dwell inside. In the Sanskrit, it is called stapana. Stapana means establishing. Sta means to stand. Stapana, stapayati, the first stage, to establish the mind inside. We have talked about the Kaya Viveka, Shenli. How do we get the isolation of the body? And in Buddhism, in yoga, in general, Buddhism is also linked to the great Indian tradition of yoga. Cannot be separated from it. Even so, some teachers try to do that. It is wrong. Actually, what the Buddha has learned, he has learned through yoga. And he has mastered the yoga and taught the yoga, nothing else. And this yoga in Buddhism is especially the shamatha and vipassana, and all that is supporting the shamatha and vipassana. So we have to know all these things supporting shamatha and vipassana. Otherwise we will not succeed. In the Indian tradition, we have the inner yoga and we have the outer yoga. The inner yoga is precisely the shamatha vipassana, the samadhi. We have two kinds of samadhi, the shamatha samadhi and the vipassana samadhi. Both, the real vipassana is also samadhi, state of balance. Shamatha is also samadhi, the state of balance. Without the balance, no peace. Balance is the real middle way. And the middle way is not easy. We have to practice. So we start our long journey to the appeasement of the mind and appeasement of the world through learning how to place our mind inside, Neiju. And we do it normally through the meditation object. If we don't have a meditation object, then it will be very difficult for us to place the mind inside the body. Not let it run widely around. And if we are not used to meditation, what will happen? We will try to keep the mind on the meditation object, we will try to keep the mind on the breath by forcing the mind. The mind does not like to be forced. But the beginner in meditation actually has no choice unless he is very, very talented. And most of us living in a society like this, where all the media and everything is made to make us turn the mind outside. So these habits, they are us. What are we? We are our habits. So it's very difficult to change habits. But we living in the modern society, we think it is like this, so we must do it. And if it does not work the way we want it, so we think that this is not for us. So we want to enlightenment. I want to be immediately enlightened. No, it will never work. First, the obstacles will come. If the obstacles do not come, there is no way to deal with them effectively. They have to come. And because if we start meditation by forcing, then we don't have much pleasure in meditation. Because we are using what the Asanga calls the forceful attention. Li li zui, li liang te li, ku li te li. This is forceful attention. Forceful because we're using forceful attention to bring our mind to the breath. We're not happy. But in the beginning, very difficult to avoid it because of our old habits. We turn to the object because of our habit of grasping the object. We want to dominate the object. But we never think who is the one who wants to dominate the object. According to Buddhism, it is our defilements. So instead of understanding the object, we want to dominate the object, grasp the object, control the object. So anxiety, worry, fear, displeasure. In the beginning of the meditation process, very difficult to avoid. So, in this case, what is to be done? The wisdom. Bring wisdom into the meditation. How do we bring wisdom into the meditation? We understand that if we use this gross mind, we will never get out of our trouble. We have to use a subtle mind to get out of the trouble. And the subtle mind will never come unless we understand its conditioning. Learning Buddhism is learning the cause and effect conditioning. We have to understand the conditioning of the good meditation, and we have to understand the conditioning of the bad meditation. Then we can avoid the bad meditation and always go into better and better meditation because we understand the conditionings. Learning Buddhism is learning the dependent origination. So in learning shamatha, we have to understand very clearly the unsatisfactory nature of the gross mind and the advantages of the more subtle mind, which we develop in shamatha. So despite all these difficulties, then we decide to continue. Continue to count the breath, continue to investigate if the breath is long or short, continue to follow the breath. Then the way for better conditioning is open by our effort to overcome our laziness. So, in this tradition, it is explained that the first obstacle, learning meditation, is explained also by removing obstacles. And the first obstacle is laziness. And laziness actually means, it is similar meaning like negligence, like non-mindfulness. So, in order to meditate despite all the obstacles we are facing, what do we need? We need faith. We need enthusiasm, because we understand how important it is to keep the mind subtle. Vasubandhu in Abhidharma Kosha, Chishulun, defines the faith as prema. Prema means love, religious love. We have to develop this religious love for meditation. Then meditation will fulfill us, because we do it with love despite all the obstacles we are facing. We do it with enthusiasm. We have desire for it. We have resolution. So we can go into better and better conditioning in meditation. If we don't have these qualities, very difficult. So when we have these qualities, then what we will see? We will see the troublesome nature of excitement and of thinking mind. So when we continue in placing our mind inside, placing our mind on the meditation object, which is a mental object, as we have explained, what will happen? Our mind will slowly, due to the habit, stay with the object. In Sanskrit it is called samstapayati. Sam means together. The mind will stay with the object. Because the mind will stay with the object, we get more confidence. And the confidence is very, very important. Then we will experience some better moments in meditation. And we will understand that by this forceful attention, we will not get there. We need, in order to go into meditation, we have to abandon this forceful attention. And we can only abandon it by developing the force of mindfulness. When the force of mindfulness is there, the forceful attention will become less and less. Because the force of mindfulness is not there, the forceful attention is dominating. And when the forceful attention is dominating, we don't have much pleasure in meditation. Because it means grasping. Why we have forceful attention? We want to grasp. And because we want to grasp, we are frustrated. We have these worries, depressions, we have doubts. We want to grasp, but it doesn't work. So the mindfulness comes in. Then, when the mindfulness is there, we will see this tendency of forceful attention, of grasping the object as something harmful. Then we are open for better states of mind. Because we see this forceful attention based on grasping as something to be avoided. So we practice mindfulness. And we have to practice it because of our deep habit of grasping, not only in sitting, we have to practice it in all bodily postures, standing, when walking meditation, eating, going to toilet, brushing teeth. When the mindfulness is there, we will be able to avoid this bad conditioning of forceful attention based on grasping. So the mind will naturally become more peaceful. And we will see this our excitements, our worries, our depressions as something, so to say, not natural. So we get the sensitivity. Mindfulness is connected with sensitivity. Without mindfulness, no sensitivity really. So we are gross without mindfulness. Whatever we do with mindfulness has the quality of lightness, smoothness, harmony. And we should be aware of it. The mindfulness is a habit. If we want to develop good habits, and learning meditation is the development of good habits, the best good habit we can develop is the habit of mindfulness. That is the blessing. Mindfulness, we have to experience very clearly, is the blessing for the mind. So when the mindfulness rather than the forceful attention comes to the mind, then we can go to the higher stages of appeasement. If the mindfulness does not crystallize in the mind due to having practice, due to having more experience, due to having studied more, listened more, contemplated more, then very difficult to get rid of these long-lasting negative states of mind based on anxiety, based on excitement. So when the mindfulness starts to crystallize, we come to the third stage of shamatha, stage shinju, dwelling of the mind in the process of being appeased. And it is called avastapayati. Xiaju, I think they translate in Chinese. Ava means down. It means, what means going down? Going down means that whenever the mind starts thinking, or whenever the mind starts losing the clarity of the object, we try to bring more mindfulness into it by applying the antidotes. We start to use applying the antidotes. And we will talk about it later, tomorrow. By applying the antidotes, we go into the higher stages of appeasement. And the antidote, according to this tradition, the antidote for the thinking mind is a will. And the antidote for the excitement is letting go. But these things, they will never come alone. They come with many, many friends, and we will discuss all these in the coming days. First, please contemplate what we have learned now, this inconvenience of the forceful attention. We have to see it not just in meditation, also in daily life. This forceful attention bringing lot of unwholesome states of mind. When we understand its troublesome nature, we start using mindfulness. When we use mindfulness, what will happen? We will have more and more kind of changing our attitudes. We will consider the pure mind as being really important. So the Dhammapada says, Chittam rakhati medavi, chittam gutam sukhavaham. The wise, who is a wise man? The wise man is the one who protects his mind from the unwholesome states of mind, excitement, thinking, stupidity, non-sensitivity, anxieties, worries, depressions. Because he knows Chittam Gutam Sukhavaham. He knows that the mind protected, who protects the mind? Mindfulness brings happiness. He knows the happiness will come when he is mindful. And mindful means knowing that these unwholesome states of mind are to be removed, so that we can stay in harmony. And mindfulness, of course, leads to awareness. And awareness will then clear the mind. We have explained the mind is cleared by awareness, and the mind is soiled, defiled by non-awareness. Okay, that much for now. We have a few minutes for questions. Are there any questions beside these? Okay. We have to one by one. Oh, it's a long question. A lot of teachers recommend Yogacara Bhumi Shastra as a good reference for Northern school of meditation practice, but it is not that easy to read. What about using Mahapragya Paramita Shastra, Tajatulun, as a reference, as it is a bit easier to read? Actually, the Tajatulun Mahapragya Paramita Shastra does not really deal in detail with all these different stages of shamatha and vipassana. It is a very excellent reference, but it does not deal with, it is more philosophical and logical treatise, but it is not much, does not give much practical information how to deal with the obstacles one meets in meditation. It is full of very great ideas, but does not give the really clear explanation what obstacles will appear in the practice and how to deal with them. That's why actually all teachers, even those who are proponents of the Madhyamika philosophy, finally teaching shamatha and vipassana refer to Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, not to Tajatulun. You mentioned about living in the city and treat it like a forest. Well, this is the ideal. We are far from this ideal. Is it difficult to implement for someone who is not advanced on the path? Of course, but if you advance on the path, how you check if you advance on the path? You can meditate even in the underground. You can meditate in the busy place. So we have to check ourselves. When you have more experience in meditation, you are not disturbed by outer objects. This means your practice of shamatha is taking deep roots. Normally, those of us who are not used to meditation, when we concentrate, we become tense. I myself, in my early days, I was working in the library. I have seen students, if they prepare for the exam, if somebody is disturbing, they can even punch, become very, very angry. This is the wrong concentration. We concentrate, we want to grasp, and because we cannot grasp, we become very, very angry at anything that is preventing us from grasping and attaining what we want to attain. But this is called the wrong mindfulness, the wrong attention. the wrong concentration. There is in Buddhism there is a Samma Samadhi and Michha Samadhi, the right Samadhi and the wrong Samadhi. This is a wrong Samadhi. A powerful person who has a good concentration, he can do a lot of evil, but he can do also a lot of good. Depends how he uses this power of concentration. If you have the power of concentration, you can do terrible evil. Actually, people like Hitler or Stalin, they had a good concentration, but they use it to remove their enemies. Killing. Now, we have to develop love and compassion to use the concentration to benefit ourselves and beings, not to remove our obstacles, but to learn from our obstacles, to treat them with gentle mind, with compassion. And that can only be done when we learn meditation correctly. And when we learn meditation correctly, we will be able to concentrate and remain completely relaxed and clear. So we can face our own obstacles with detachment, and we can face the obstacles of others with detachment. What is obstacle? The anger, the hate. And our world is full of them. And when we get affected by this, we cannot really help others. Okay, Northern School's ideal society is a society that is advanced both materially and spiritually. But again, is it difficult for better? Please try to restrict your questions to the meditation, not so much philosophy, because then we will never end. Taking everything into consideration, is monkhood or nunhood still the best way to start on a bodhisattva path, especially for someone who is not advanced? Well, this is a very difficult question to answer. If somebody wants to be a monk or a nun, then one has to contemplate the essence of monkhood and nunhood. Otherwise, you will become certainly very disenchanted, to use the Bhikkhu Bodhi's language, from being a monk or being a nun. So one has to be very clear what it means to be a monk or the nun. I remember being in Taiwan, there was a discussion with the monks and nuns. People were asking, why you become the monk, why you become the nun? And many answered, I want to be a nun to help others. But this is not the aim of the monkhood or nunhood, to help others. You can help others maybe even better by being a layman. The aim of the monkhood and the aimhood is the renunciation. And the renunciation is not easy. We learn and learn and learn and learn and learn, and we make many mistakes, that's for sure. But when we are monks and nuns, it's easier to practice. To become a monk and nun is to have it makes the practice easier. But nowadays, not so many monks and nuns practice seriously. It is a problem with all religions, not only Buddhism. Buddhism may be still a little better, but in many religions, especially Western religion, or religion becomes just a social service and politics and so on, but no practice for liberation. Okay, so let's have another one. You mentioned 3 steps, stages in the northern tradition: counting, following, placing. What are the other 3? We have explained they are the investigation, turning away, vivartana, and the purity. We will talk about them in the coming days also. These first 3 steps belong to shamatha, and the next 3 steps belong to vipassana. And we combine shamatha and vipassana. How we will learn today, maybe evening. For the southern tradition, you mentioned 3: counting, following, touching. What are the remaining 5? Again, the same, the placing, then investigation, turning away, purity, and the Southern Buddhism adds the knowledge of purity. Could you please tell more about how in Yogacara tradition all objects are mental, mind, and why this development happened? This development actually is from the very beginning. Buddhism emphasizes the mind. The mind, now in Southern Buddhism, we all used to study the Dhammapada, and the first verse of Dhammapada, what does it say? Mano pubangama dhamma, mano seta, mano maya. All the phenomena are preceded by the mind. Mano pubangama dhamma, mano seta, all the phenomena are led by the mind. Mano seta, mano maya, all the phenomena are contained in the mind. This idea is not any northern tradition or not any southern tradition. It is the essence of Buddhism. Understanding mind means solving the problem of suffering and happiness. The happiness comes from mind, the suffering comes from mind. When we understand the mind, we can solve the problem. The physical suffering nobody can remove, but the mental suffering is not necessary. This is what the Buddha has taught. The mental suffering is due to ignorance. And the ignorance is due to our perversion. And perversion consists of seeing permanence in the impermanent, seeing happiness in that which is impermanent, and seeing self in that which has no self. However you explain, whether northern tradition, southern tradition, it is the same. Northern tradition sometimes explain the opposite. The reality is permanent, but actually it can be only understood in regard to this original idea, because what is the peculiarity of the path of Bodhisattva is contemplating the worldly from the point of view of the highest. In the southern tradition, we contemplate the worldly from the point of view of the impermanent suffering. But impermanence only makes sense because there is something beyond impermanence. Suffering makes only sense because there is something beyond suffering. So by learning shamatha, we learn the true happiness. By learning vipassana, we learn to suffer with happiness. Without suffer, if you can suffer with happiness, you have realized. And as long as we have the body, we will have to suffer. So how, now the time is over, but let's have the last question. How do we keep mindful or aware while sleeping and while passing away? Well, this is a very complicated question. One has to learn step by step. Of course, by learning shamatha and vipassana. Now, if you learn the northern tradition, especially the Tibetan tradition, there is a discipline called sleeping yoga and the dream yoga. But you won't find it in so much in Theravada. But actually, when you practice shamatha and vipassana, it is nothing but the learning to keep mindful in all situations. So it is said that the arahats do not sleep. Who is sleeping? Our defilements. The Buddha only rests for 2 or 3 hours, and he's clear. So, a lot to learn. Okay, so that much for now.